Spiritual beings in a physical body, our thought creates reality and we're all connected. That's the title that I always start with, even though I will talk about something else. And I put a fancy title there to get people to watch, yes. But it is still an appropriate title. What was it? I just thought it up a minute ago. The Archon Magic Playground of Satan. Well, see, let me just say this. We're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality. We're all connected and we're in a magic matrix. Like in the movie The Matrix, which I saw not long ago. It's, to me, that movie, and if you combine it with every other movie ever made, you have this magic matrix that we humans reside in, shall we say. And the movie The Matrix sums up what we live in as spiritual beings, creating our own reality, all connected, but we are in this magic matrix of Satan, in the sense that Satan, or I said Saturn in the title, but it's all the same. It just come to me, okay? But Satan is a familiar name that we have while we are on this earth. We have that title as the opposing force to the positive religious kind of entity. That's the negative. What we see as the negative, of course, it's positive and negative because it's totally his domain. The earth is totally Satan's, totally the totally his domain, in the sense that even though he creates good and bad in it and works as much in a good or a bad, it uses the duality, the good bad, okay, but he's still the negative to what we would see as, our positive religion. I'm sorry about the disturbances. This is the magic matrix. I can't emphasize this enough. Even in doing a simple thing like making a video, right? There will be, the magic matrix will be operating. I say magic because it is like the Matrix movie. 100%. Okay? 100%. I don't wish to lose my so-called cool, but and I don't do it very often, but it is a magic matrix in the sense that, like the movie, if something is not what you think it is totally fake, totally unreal, and totally the opposite of what you conceive your reality to be in every possible way, then it is magic. It's real, and it's as real as what you would consider real, but it's not real to me or to you because we don't believe that that is how our world is or operates. We don't see it as a magic matrix. We don't see it as the matrix of the Matrix movie, even though the movie is actually, of course, telling you that 100%. I'll move this forward. I hope I'm not making it too jilty, but I'm not comfortable. But you see, it's the movie The Matrix, right, does show you 100% the truth. That movie represents the Archon matrix that we live in. represented on this earth by the entity known as Satan or Lucifer or whatever you like. I'm not familiar with this. I have not delved into this. I did not believe in the existence of this. Like I said in the previous video, that's from a movie too. The greatest trick the devil ever played was basically the the non-belief in his existence. So in other words, you've got a God that rules your whole earth, but you do not he is covert. He's not here in front of you. He's not even the God of your religion, but he is the God of your religion. You do worship him. You worship him every day, in every way. That's the truth. But you worship him covertly or unintentionally or indirectly or subconsciously. You don't, I mean, there again, and I'll move this back now. I should have set myself up better. I'm sorry. I'm not comfortable at all. And it makes it hard to make a video if you're not comfortable. Could you just give me 1 second? Oh, sorry about that. I really am sorry. My videos are the worst and the most unprofessional, and for that I apologise. And I also apologise for going all over the place. And I apologise for the disturbances, because that is deliberate interference by the Matrix to stop my concentration, the mind parasites, etc., that I've talked about. And this is all part of the Matrix. Now, you might say I'm being ridiculous, and I accept that. But this is what I think, okay? And if you go with it, that's okay. If you don't, you would have to accept, as I've said before, the basic belief that you are in the Matrix, that the Matrix movie is basically telling you the truth. And if you don't experience any of it, you probably won't accept that. And that is part of the illusion too, because that's the idea, is that you find it, like I say, you find the idea of a magic matrix, a computer-generated control system, a world ruled by an entity that you may or may not acknowledge. Now, you know, like even in your religion, you do have the opposing force of Satan versus the God that you think you worship, okay? In reality, in this actual earth, there is only the one God, and that is Satan, okay? He is the God of this actual world. This is, in my view, hell, okay? That might sound extreme, but you know, the Bible, and we've always been conditioned, even though I'm not real familiar with it, and I'll admit that, we've always been conditioned that you go to hell after you die. Well, that may well be true, but they don't say that you have died many, many times, and that yes, we keep coming back to hell. We never really get out of hell, and hell is eternal. That's right, and humans are actually stuck in an eternal hell, because if you believe in all these things, which I have not experienced them, I am not one of you people, and I'll tell you honestly, that has been to the other side. I have never died and been where they talk about where you go to the other side and you might see the light and all this sort of stuff. I have not experienced that. I accept it as a part of my reality now, only in the sense that if I can accept that I'm in the Matrix, which I do, I have no doubt about that, okay? Then, if I then piece together all the other bits of information that have come to me from other sources and other people, because once you accept as true the magic matrix, shall we say, the artificial world, a contrived world, a totally set up reality, and you know that that is true, that that is real, that that is the real world that you've been living in for a lifetime, then it is not that hard to say, if the technology is much vaster and there is all this yes, kind of magic going on, and if humans create reality with their thinking, they're all connected and they're really spiritual beings, which is the basis of what I start the video on, and the basis of what I think a human being is, and is meant to be in this, even in this reality, then the rest does not seem that far-fetched. In fact, nothing seems far-fetched. In fact, like, as I say, this is my view now, is that every movie ever made is as much real and as much part of our reality as the limited reality that we experience. Now, so therefore, that is the reality, but it's showing you the reality you don't see. It's showing you the covert reality, because we only see a limited reality, because each one of us, when we're put here on this earth, we are, I'm trying to find the words. Oh dear, this is awful that I can't find the words. I'm so sorry. We're put here already kind of knowing already the reality that we will be put into. Some of us, like myself, will be put into an extra limited reality, okay? An extra limited reality. That means that you will not be shown anything other than the very basics of this matrix. And whereas now I'm seeing more of the matrix, okay? But for a lifetime, I've only seen the very limited matrix, the very basics of it. Like I said in the other video, only seeing the trees, not seeing the forest. But there again, I have to use descriptions to explain it. But Matrix movie, right, to me, and the more I think about it, and I only use the Matrix movie as an example because it's probably the movie that sums up where you're going to start from if you want to say what is the real situation we're here in on this earth realm. Even that could be a vast misconception, as some people are starting to realise. It really doesn't matter, I don't think, in a way, but it does matter in the sense that it doesn't really matter if I am sitting on a triangle. In other words, it doesn't matter what the actual construct of this earth realm really is at a physical level. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. That's all just part of the confusion, I think. But, and it is a confusion, but if you can sort of say, well, look, and there again, if you can only get the true history, you're piecing it together. You're like, well, if people believe this at one time, and then they believe something at another time, and then something else at another time still, and, you know, and if you sort of think about that, you say, well, why should I believe that what I believe to be the real reality of my existence in this earth realm now is any more real at this time than what it was hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago, when they might have thought that this earth realm was different? You see what I'm trying to say? If they were under a misconception then, there's no reason to believe that you're not under one now. And then, you know, 100 years into the future or something, they might believe this realm they might even go back to what they thought it was. They might believe it's something totally different. You know, you will only believe what the Matrix wants you to believe. If you buy into the belief systems of the Matrix, if you play the game of the Matrix, if you accept the Matrix, everything that is presented you to be real, then you will believe whatever the Matrix wants you to believe about the Matrix or the Earth, okay? The Matrix is the Earth, but I'm saying that it is like the Matrix movie in the sense that, you know, I'm going what they say out on a limb here in a way, because I can't prove any of these things, and it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong, really, in a way, but it is still good to think about it, okay? Originally, I've said before, we were put here as a living library, human beings, part of nature, part of every living thing, and part of the actual Earth realm. What we would call totally natural and organic, even though nothing in our reality, even according to science, is really totally that way. But because we're spiritual beings, we are the most authentic. We are not anymore, okay? I'm going to emphasize that. And that is being derogatory of human beings, but I have to be, and I have to be about myself. This is the reality. We are not that anymore. Some of us still have that in us, that ability. We could perhaps go back and reclaim that, but we are not doing that. We are going further into the matrix, okay? But I am saying, I think that the original Earth that we were connected 100% to, and every life form, because we are a life form, we are not a technological form. We are now a technological form, in my view. We're now a technological form, but we were originally a life form. Do you see what I'm getting at? Saying? So that means that originally, I'm guessing that, like the movie The Matrix, because I say we are shown everything, the original Earth does not exist. It was the best, as we were the best. We were the best of the best, put into a place to be preserved almost, and to grow and to develop, etc. I'm not 100% sure of how. I'm keeping it basic, and I don't know all the details, and I'm going to plead ignorance and admit this. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know it all. I don't. In fact, I probably know very little, but it still seems to be more than what some people know. But that's only because they have not been exposed to the matrix, which is just the way it is. It doesn't mean that one person is more intelligent than the other at all. It just means that if you have encountered something that someone else doesn't, of course you are going to then be more aware of the reality. But you could be, you don't have to have a high IQ for that, and I'm not big on that IQ stuff anyway. I don't believe in it. I don't think it matters at all. In fact, once again, I'm always diverging, so I do hope you've got a mind that can flitter from one to the other, because if you don't, you probably won't follow me. And quite frankly, if I was listening to me, I wouldn't follow me. But because it's like that, you have a lot of thoughts coming into your head. And as I was actually told, I should just make a video on one specific topic and keep to it, because the way I flitter from one to the other does confuse And unless you have already seen a bit of the Matrix, as some people have, then you won't follow it. And, you know, my intention in originally making a video was the opposite to that, even though, of course, naturally, it's more of a pleasure to talk to someone who is already on your same wavelength. That makes it easy and it's a pleasure. But, you know, that's okay for this wavelength of technology, which is what I am not really for anyway, as you know. And then you're buying into that game too. But at the same time, it's all that exists now. And it's like using Satan or the devil's technology, without being offensive to that particular entity or whatever. It is not intended that way. I'm just stating what I consider to be a reality. And, you know, so I know that, you know, whatever God you worship, whether directly or indirectly, you are going to see that God as benevolent and good and kind, even if the God may be putting things to you that are not essentially that pleasant or good or bad. See, this is where I would draw, not so much draw the line, but it's like you can recognize something to be a God, and you're not supposed to question a God. You know, but you know, I personally don't like the Matrix, so I like some things about the Matrix, but because it is a matrix, the things that I like in it are part of it and will be used by the matrix. So it's kind of like that. So in other words, because I'm saying that a bit like in the movie, right? If the original matrix, the original Earth, no longer exists, or at least we are not in it anymore, so therefore we are in a lesser version of what the original matrix Earth was. But when I say, see there again, it wasn't a matrix originally in a funny kind of way. See, I'm confusing you and myself there, because when I say matrix, really, let's use that word the way it probably is meant to really be used. Words are hard, as I've said. In the movie The Matrix, they say, what is the matrix? It is a computer-generated control system designed to get negative energy off the human being, essentially, if you look at that movie. Well, the original Earth matrix, no, it wasn't a matrix, it was an original Earth, because it wasn't designed for that purpose. It was designed to the opposite, to allow humans to be free and natural and commune, you could say, yes, with nature, with everything that was around them, which was actually part of them. The original Earth and every living thing was totally part of the human being. They were totally in sync with it. It was not, it would only benefit from the human, and the human would only benefit from it. And it was all put there because it was all of a life force, I'm guessing, okay? Whereas a matrix, even though it looks the same as the original Earth, it's a simulated copy. It's a simulated copy of everything that was authentically organic, natural, and beneficial to the human being. Whereas the Matrix is a copy of that to keep the humans kind of comfortable, almost, you could say, because there's a part of them that knows that, but we've been separated so much from it. It's like everything in this matrix. This is why the matrix has to be as it is because even the most separated humans on this earth still at a kind of subconscious level are seeking to go back to what they originally were, but they don't get this. They don't realise this 100%. Every human really wants to go back to the garden, really, I think. Every human, proper human, wants to go back to the garden because it's in their body, it's in their whole psyche that's been down for since the beginning of time. It's still there because even though we have been even though there has been intervention and we have been changed, there's still some remnants of that original thing there with humans. And they know that, but it's at a subconscious level. And that's why the matrix has to cater to this in a funny kind of way. You're following me? You're probably not. I know I'm not getting it across very well as usual. I wish I could. But it's a bit like saying, you know how I say that we're spiritual beings, originally, totally spiritual beings. Our thought creates reality, even though that's not relevant to what I'm saying. And we're all connected. So at a subconscious level, we're aware of that connection, but most of us, so we kind of, see, this is tricky too, because so many of us on this earth now have been separated even from our need, our subconscious need to, shall we say, be loved and be in connection with other human beings. This is a deliberate separation by the matrix to create human beings that will operate more for the matrix and will create more negative energy. In other words, if you have a human being that is separated from other human beings, and you've done that from the day they're born, by the time they're an adult, they will be a negative human being subconsciously towards other human beings, towards that which they're really connected to, but they will be disconnected. In fact, they will be alienated from their connection to other human beings. So they will create negative energy, which, like in the movie The Matrix, you know how it's sort of said to make a human being into like the battery. That means the battery is the negative energy that the machines need to feed off. Okay, I'm going to go back to the movie now. I've got my own mind back on track. Sorry about that. Okay. So in the movie The Matrix, right, this is what I was going to say, and most people have seen this movie, and if you haven't, go and see it, because see it many times. I will try and see it again, but I have to get, but if I'm wrong, correct me. And I could be wrong, because when you're talking about a movie, I haven't seen it yesterday, but I have seen it a few months ago, and I saw it a couple of times. But before that, I had not seen it. But in the movie The Matrix, if memory serves me correct, because even I did not quite understand it, but I'm getting it now. In the movie The Matrix, and if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to make this point anyway, okay? Because this is what I think anyway. But you can take it or leave it. Okay, in the movie The Matrix, even in the simulation, the artificial world, shall we say, that the Matrix is, human beings have been born into this artificial matrix construct that's like a fantasy world. They say this in the movie. They use all these terms, so it's okay for me to say it. You've been living in a fantasy, Neo, he says. It's a fantasy world. This is what we are living in, a fake fantasy world, all set up for us, designed to turn the human being into a negative energy battery to feed the machines. Okay, so you're going to say to me, well, this is what you have to think about, okay? Movies are all real, and this is what I'm taking the movie to be real, okay? Um, yeah, so what does that mean if it as this world now is for me, right? Like we are supposedly headed towards that type of thing. The acceptance of technology is the acceptance of machine, okay? Now, are we headed towards that world? Of course, we are headed towards that world because we use machines and we use technology and we're incorporating it more and more into our personal and everyday life. We think it is just a plaything for us, an added convenience, but it's in our life and it is not, it is part of the matrix. It is not something that we operate separately as individual human beings. This is obvious anyway. This is not something that I'm making up. You would know that yourself. The thing is, the Matrix movie was made many years ago. I only saw it a few months ago. We're headed towards using more and more technology and more machines. It gets more advanced all the time. But the movie was made a fair while ago. Now, are we? We know we're already in a matrix, okay? This is the established fact. But if you don't believe that, that's another thing, okay? But if you operate from that premise that we're already in a matrix and you go on every movie that we've ever seen, or even if you've only seen a few, because I haven't seen every, in fact, I have seen very few of the more science fiction type ones. But even the few that I've seen, because that's not a genre that I have actually studied. I'm trying to look at more now, but I only have to look at every single one and it just comes to me, which is kind of strange. Even though it was also there in old horror movies, but that's a different genre. But if you combine the Matrix movie with the They Live movie that was made a few years ago, look at those two movies, combine them, then you'll have to do like is done to us, tweak your mind. And you'll have to go and say, oh, if it's all real, then I'm saying I'm challenging. I challenged myself, and so I'm going to challenge anyone that's listening. Put the two movies together. Put the Truman Show in there as well, if you like. Just as you don't need to, but you can add it to where you've got like to where because the Matrix naturally will watch you because it's a construct. So that seems reasonable to throw that in. There are only 3 movies, and they're pretty simple movies in a way. They're not, oh, well, I suppose The Matrix is far-fetched to most people, of course. That's why I avoided watching it for years. But it's not, if you say, even scientifically, everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. So that means nothing really around us is 100% real anyway. And the human being is spiritual, and their thought creates reality, and they're all connected. And they are part of that frequency matrix, shall we say. It's not something that you can explain, and it's not something that I fully comprehend because I'm not scientific. And if I was, I would get it much quickly because I get the concept. But it's a bit like understanding um, minute particles and things. You'd understand that if you're a scientist. So this is all beyond me because I'm a very ignorant, limited human being, and I'm not educated, okay? So I've had to piece it together from limited background, and like I say, if I didn't know, see, and feel the matrix coming down and actually see it, I would be, in the dark, shall we say. Now, the matrix will be visible to you when you are able to raise the frequency. I've said this before, but most people are kept at the low energy battery level, like is meant to be, like even from the movie The Matrix, because that energy feeds the machines, okay, like in the movie The Matrix. But you're going to say to me, well, but there are no machines that the battery is feeding. And what were the machines in the movie The Matrix? What were the machines in the movie The Matrix? So what I'm saying here is to think about these things. I'm not putting it directly to you. I'm not being direct, and I'm not. I think it's better for all of us, as I did, to realise things yourself. I think that anyone, if they're listening, is not going to just listen to me and say, oh yeah, that's right. No, I think that each person does have to see it for themselves, or have to see those possibilities. I personally think that unless you see it personally a bit yourself, even if you have vast information, you're probably not going to see it. This is the unfortunate thing, I think. And this is what I see too, because I wonder why more intelligent people than me don't see the matrix. And this is quite simple, is because they're just not seeing it, because it is not being put right into their reality, into their face. It's a bit like in the movie They Live. Most people were not lucky enough to find the box of sunglasses, okay? And without those sunglasses, most people could not see it. In fact, even the main fella would not have seen it. And the matrix itself, like in that movie, because it is technologically controlled, that really means that while the technology is there, very few people are going to be able to see the matrix, because the technology is part of the is the matrix, is part of the matrix, and so it keeps the blinkers on. It keeps even the most intelligent human being from seeing the matrix, because the technology is a frequency, and as I said, we're all frequency, vibration, and energy. That is scientific. We are that, and we give out that, and we receive that, shall we say. There again, I don't want to go into it too much or get too airy-fairy, or even pretend that I know more than what I do, because I don't. But I'm trying to keep it basic, and I have to keep it basic because it's basic for me. It's not, I do not understand all the details because I'm not an educated intellectual person. I'm going to tell you that. Now, where was I? The frequency of this world, because it is a wave, the technology is the wavelength, or the frequency, if you like, of Saturn, or of the matrix, or the the entities that control the matrix, because obviously if you have a matrix, you've got to have someone that's operating it. When I say someone, that implies a person. It will be obviously manipulated by humans as well, as I've said before, but they're not most humans, and they would be very limited, but they would be ones that are working, that operate for the proper controller, shall we say, the proper God entity, as I say, um, to keep the frequency going of the matrix, which is technology. And if the technology was not there, particularly at this present time, I've said before, a lot of humans would see the matrix. Now, whether they would still want to stay in the matrix or still like the matrix or still accept the matrix as it is would be their choice, their free choice. Humans are always given free choice. That's all they really are given. But even that, if you are in a matrix and believe it, I personally think that your free choice is limited, because if you believe in something that isn't real and you believe um, the information of the matrix, and you believe the matrix is a real natural thing instead of a construct, instead of a video game, instead of a virtual reality controlled world, then of course your decision, as I said before, will be based on that. And so even though you're given free choice, it would be very debatable if you're going to. That's the problem with all of us, is that that's why we make so many negative choices, because we operate under the belief that everything is real and that everything is random, shall we say, and that type of thing. And yet it is not that way at all. Anyway, I've rambled on a lot there, but I'm saying that was just food for thought, shall we say. I could be direct, and I should be able to be, but I don't want to be. And maybe, what am I going to say? Okay, I will go there a little bit. I will say, on this earth, there are different types of human beings. Originally, there was one type, or maybe, this is only what I'm saying, okay, but there could have been a few types, but I'm presuming, because I can't, as I said, I don't have all the information, but I'm assuming that originally, at the beginning of time, when this Earth library, which no longer exists really, because this is the computer generated fake duplicate version, okay, that we now are living in. It looks the same, or it would have looked much better than what it looks now. It would not have been filled with all the abominations. And I use that word, I found it it's come from the Bible, and I don't even have great familiar with that, but abomination means something that is of great offence, I think. That is the complete abhorrence, the opposite of what should be and what was originally. And our earth that we have now would probably have to be an abomination of the original earth, because the original earth would not have had any technology. The original earth would not have had any, there would have been like no cities and all that sort of stuff. It would have just been a natural terrain, shall we say. Everything would have lived freely and naturally, and we would have too. And we would have been in harmony then with that, I suppose, because we were connected to it. So of course we would be in harmony, we would have to be. Whereas now we are living in the matrix, okay? But you're saying, well, what happened to the original Earth? Why are we living in a matrix? Why are we not still on? Well, that's another question. I suppose I'll have to go back to the Matrix movie and say, well, they gave an explanation there that it was somehow destroyed by some war or something, fighting the machines, or, obviously that. Now, I can't say that, because also you would say, well, that hasn't happened yet. because we haven't advanced to where there are these machines everywhere. We have some machines, sure, and we have technology, but we have not advanced to that level, have we? Have we? Have we? That would appear to be the case. So we're still waiting for that world to happen, so we're safe. You know, but, you know, if I'm in a matrix and my world has been constructed for me from the day I was born, and it's a limited world, and it's a world where I have not lived, and certainly not raised the vibration, which would have then given me the ability to see the matrix sooner, and also given me the ability to not be affected by it and to not play in it, or to at least decide that. And so my world is constructed to keep me in a fake, limited reality. So then I would have to say, my world that I see is not the real world, even in the matrix. Even, so the movie, because in the movie, if you think about it, the humans that are in the matrix, in the movie, even the Neo character himself, he didn't think he was in a matrix. And he didn't think that the world was any more technologically advanced than the computer he was using. He didn't think that the machines existed, even though the machines had existed and had destroyed his real Earth, shall we say. That's how the movie goes. So, you know, and then in the movie They Live, you have the fella putting on the glasses and seeing the matrix, and seeing that even humans around him were not as human as him or whatever. And I was going to say that this is true, that even on this earth now, you do have, you know, like even at the level that we think, I've said this before, not all humans are as well, I already said that a lot of humans from the day they're born, there's lots of ways the matrix will keep the vibration low and keep the humans down. And that will depend on the individual. The more potential the human has for raising the vibration, and therefore raising others' vibration, and therefore changing the reality, because human thought creates reality. If you look at it this way, if you piece all these things together, then that means that the humans that are, as I've said in the other one, directed more towards negativity, in other words, confused and traumatized from the day they're born, much more so, the more, because that person will have to be more controlled, because some humans might have more potential than others to raise the vibration. You know, in other words, if they're not conditioned by the matrix, shall we say, they would probably in their natural state just automatically rise and be happy, shall we say. But at any rate, I've gone off the track. But I just want to make those points, and just for you to think about it. That's I think that's the best thing to do, is to just think about it. Just look at those movies and any others and combine them and say, this is what I consider to be unreal, these movies. But my reality seems simple, but That was the same as in the Matrix movie, where the average person is getting around. Even Neo himself was told to get back into the Matrix, get back to your little job that you're doing, forget everything about seeking out that you think there's something wrong in the world, that you think, yes, you might be living in a matrix. Go back to your job and accept the world as you are told that it is, and then you will be all right. Well, you'll plod along and serve the matrix, but of course, you will not know that that world is not real and that the human being is going to be reduced to the battery, that type of thing, because that's what the movie says, that's what the movie is about. So I should be doing a movie review, shouldn't I? But I'm going to leave it there on that and go on to something else. I should be just sticking with the movie, but I might get back to the movie and that on another video if I'm still able to, because because it does, in a way, for me, until I find out more, really that does encompass the basics, combined with what humans originally were. Like I say, they more, if you haven't seen the other videos, but combined with what I believe to be true, that we were originally put here in a natural earth realm, but we're now in an artificial earth realm. And it is total illusion, total construct, and total, even our concept of what this world is, I do not know. And this makes it very hard to actually say, I do not know. I'm not sure what the actual real reality of it is. Now, we could take it further. I would have to look into where some people say, well, if we're all one, it is all one kind of, I don't want to go there. No, I want to keep it simple. And I don't understand it, to be honest. I don't understand the idea of where people say we're all one consciousness. I heard someone say that to me and I haven't looked into it, right? But in a funny kind of way, that's what I'm kind of saying, isn't it? If I say we're spiritual beings, our thought creates reality and we're all connected. And yet I wouldn't say that. But really, in a funny kind of way, I am kind of saying that. But I must emphasise, I think, that if we are in this fake construct reality, that we may not be connected to every human being. See, I don't know that for sure. I know that we are disconnected from most of our fellow human beings that we should be connected to. I believe we should be connected to even the worst of what you would call the worst of our human beings. In other words, the most psychopathic bad person, and this is all part of the matrix anyway, it's all a construct. I don't believe any of it. In other words, I don't believe necessarily that people who do really bad things they do bad things, right? They do things that we would say bad, but that is only because they are more taken over by the matrix. But they are still spiritual human beings the same as myself. And I've done wrong things too. We all have. It's just a degree. Everything is a degree. How much you're taken over by the mind parasites that control because it's a mind parasite God entity, okay? Because essentially it controls your mind. And controlling your mind and your thinking and your spirit, but forget that even if you don't want to believe that. But even just the fact that they control your mind by their manipulation of your thinking, by creating what you think is acceptable even in the reality that you live in. Because that's changed all the time. So it's common sense in a way that, of course, we are manipulated by our surroundings. Think about it, because if you didn't believe the same thing even 20 years ago to what you believe now, and you certainly didn't believe at 60, 100, that is manipulation. Because if we really just had our own mind, it wouldn't be able to be tweaked and changed so easily. I've changed my ideas a lot over my lifetime because the matrix has manipulated my thinking. I sit here now and I could honestly say, I'm going to be blunt, that, hey, I could have sat here a few years back and said, hey, I am unhappy in my body. I think that I am not the same as another person. I'm not the same as another woman. I'm not the same as this and that. I'm I'm out of I'm not. See, I don't want to be direct, but I'm saying that I could have thought that I was in the wrong body. Okay, this is putting it bluntly, and I could have said, hey, maybe I like something different to what I think I should like. My perception is that instead of being attracted to what would be considered normal, I might be attracted to something different. I'm going to be blunt about it, but it's acceptable these days for this. But I'm saying that this was true of me years ago. But I'm now saying that, hey, I don't have my own thoughts. I think what the Matrix tells me to think. So whilst I might still say I still might feel that way, I do not acknowledge it to be a truth. And I do not I acknowledge that to be conditioning. I acknowledge that to be brainwashing. I acknowledge that I've been conditioned and brainwashed my entire life. And so if I sit here now and say, hey, I still like the same things that I liked, which it's very hard to let go of what you have been conditioned to like. It becomes part of you. And that's the unfortunate thing, or the deception even. And but I acknowledge now, or believe and see it, that it wasn't what I thought. Well, the minute you start to say, hey, even what you liked was probably not what you thought, then you have to say, yes, I can see a deception. I can see that I have been seduced. We're seduced. Satan seduces, they say that, don't they? Anyway, so that's the thing. So you have to be seduced into thinking a certain way. The Matrix seduces you, okay? Whereas in the original Earth, I would say there was no seduction, okay? Because in the original Earth, when we were put here before intervention, before the gods came, shall we say, beings came, there was no seduction because we were just in harmony with ourselves and with nature and with the earth. And we controlled our own domain. Unfortunately, we got sidetracked but anyway, that's something that even I can't go into or understand why we are now in the artificial construct Earth. But even if you look at the artificial construct Earth, even if you want to believe that it's still organic and natural, which it does have organic, natural things in it, but they are controlled by the Matrix, just as we are natural, organic, spiritual beings, but we are controlled by the Matrix. It's like that, like the movie, Now, I'm sorry because my throat is sore, because the frequencies are not conducive to my natural, organic, so-called spiritual human body, which should be able to actually probably fend off a certain amount of the unnatural. I believe this is the case, but if you're at low frequency, you're like prone to every attack, every illness and everything. And this is why humans are sick and their bodies deteriorate so much more. This is what I think, and that's because high frequency means that, you can fend off anything and you're impervious to the Matrix. So whatever is bad in the Matrix is not going to affect you. But if you're at low vibration, as we all are, because we are playing in the Matrix and find it hard not to, then, the matrix will be able to infiltrate your body and your mind and keep you at negative vibration, which is part of also being sick and ill and all, because that creates low vibration. You can't feel on top of the world if your body is not operating at full potential. I know this myself because I've said this before, and I'll say it from personal experience, that only a few years ago, my body was at quite a good physical health. And my vibration was higher because of even that alone. You know, that's why a lot of people are trying to get those endorphins going. Even with the exercise, they almost force themselves, and for a little while they're doing it, it can produce a slight rise in the vibration or euphoria, or whatever they want to call it. The problem is keeping it there, and I would think you know, I'm guessing that, see, that then you have to kind of, I don't know how to put this, and I'm not sure how it fully works, but I'm guessing that you still have to do more than that. But it's a step in the right direction. But you see, if you're walking around in a matrix, breathing in smog-filled air, and kind of you're not appreciating the environment around you. You're not in the natural kind of healthy area, shall we say, to where you can almost, like they say, commune with nature, and you're doing that, all that in combination. You probably won't be raising the vibration as much as what you think. You might be getting a slight high from the excessive exercise, that type of thing, but you probably won't. I'm only guessing this because I don't see too many high vibrational people, and I'm going on my own experience, but I would think that back when I was getting to be physically younger, which has now been reversed, by the way, because the matrix has come down, but when I was at that point, I was also starting to open my eyes up to the natural world and actually see it as something really special, as though I had been kept blind to it for most of my life, which I had. You know, this was a deliberate matrix operation ploy, or whatever you want to use. In other words, it was part of the matrix, because it was like, if the sun is good for you, if the nature is good for you, and the water is good for you, all these sorts of natural things, if they're good for you and they will help to raise your vibration, if you are kept in the dark, in other words, like if you were, say, in a job where you had to work night shift and therefore you had to sleep through the day, that type of thing, you're going to be denied access to your high vibrational inspirations and to get that, so that you can raise the vibration. You're going to be kept from that. And this is how the matrix works. You see what I'm getting at? This is how it works. So, because the frequency has to be kept low, as I've said before. I was just going to say that even making this video, if it makes you feel down, don't listen to it, because I would be better off making a funny cat video or something if it raises the vibration. You know, because a lot of the videos that I've looked at, they've given me the insight and the information that I need, because I've become aware of the matrix. But at the same time, it doesn't raise my vibration. No, because I'm not of the type, as some people will be, where they will use that and not let it bring them down. This is the secret, is to gain the knowledge and to use it to open your eyes and to see the potential to live in it, be aware of it, not be controlled by it, but and not be brought down by it also. You know, you see what I'm trying to say. So even a video, if it's informative, even knowledge in this matrix, because really the power is in the knowledge and in the information, the correct truth, the truth, not so much knowledge, the truth is really the thing. Knowledge is one thing, truth is another, really, and especially in the matrix. We have a lot of knowledge, very little truth. But, if even the truth, like, brings you down to where you can't, like in the movie The Matrix, where when he first found out, he was like, get me out of here, I don't want to know it. I'm sorry I took the red pill. I wanted the truth, but it's too much for me. And that's how most people are. That's why so many of us, even those that should be seeing The Matrix, because it's funny that there are people who actually do touch on all these things. They haven't experienced the matrix, but are seeking the truth, and they actually see things more than what I did. But it's still so hard for them to deal with it that they still dismiss it in a funny kind of way. But anyway, I better stop there about the matrix, because actually it's making me feel a little bit ill, which that's what I'm saying. It's not good. Also, it's getting very hot here too. But and that's another issue. Everything is the matrix. I'll say that. Now, I was going to touch on just some other little things, but I should really close the video. But I wanted to go into, like, well, I just used another example of how the matrix, because I wrote it down over there, I can see, because these are things that I just see every day, right? And so I think that I just use them, throw them to you as an example. They're not very good examples, they're not big examples, but I see a million of them, but most of the time I forget. But like an example of how I used the vampire movie thing yesterday. And that was just to show you how we get tweaked. I say tweaked, in other words, to where things get twisted around for us. Like there's a hotel not far from me that I've walked past, and they used to have poker machines in there, right? And they got rid of the poker machines, and they make a big issue out of that, to say how good we are that we now no longer have the poker machines, whereas most of the pubs and things have the poker machines, and that's gambling, and that takes your hard-earned money, and it's a waste of time. You're putting your money in, and all that thing. You can't win, or you only win a little bit and you lose most of your money, and that's true. But they make a big issue out of that, as though they are the best hotel in Sydney, which is where I live. But I looked at that and thought, yeah, that's good. And yeah, they have quite a few more little ideas in there that seem to be for the benefit of people, for the benefit of you and me, the human beings. But then they've replaced it with, like, where they have live acts, where people sing, and then I kind of think, oh, well, yeah, they're on the right track. There's a little bit of an improvement in the matrix, in the world. But then I sort of just looked at it and had a few glances a few times, and then I have to say, am I not being tweaked by the matrix again? And of course I am, because without being personal or talking about music in particular, I would personally say that the music that they play in replacement of the poker machines, the live acts that they have, they are of a negative frequency. This is just my opinion. The music is a negative frequency. Most music today is negative frequency anyway, but this is kind of blatant negative frequency. The acts are of the very heavy, Well, look, you'd have to see them yourself, but well, let's just put it very bluntly. I walked past there only yesterday, right? And they have they've got rid of the poker machines, so they're very good for me and you. And I should be happy to go in there, which I've never been into a pub much anyway. But you know, that should be good for. I should say that's good, but you know, I look around in that pub, and it appears to be just fun, you know. But they have skulls everywhere. They have demon-like pictures. And yesterday they have a great big huge sign. This is what you call synchronicity. This is what you call, yes, seeing the matrix, okay? And it's just written right across in huge letters, Hail Satan. And I'm like thinking, But also I'm like thinking, well, like, what context really is this for a hotel or a pub? Like, is this seems to be the whole, what's the word, decor of this particular pub, because it's everywhere in there. This is the actual furnishings, everything that's in there, everything that's on the walls and the furniture and everything, and all has this theme, shall we say, going on, almost like as if to say it's Halloween all year round. And it is, and the artists that perform on the stage that replaces the poker machines are all of that genre, shall we say, and their music is all of that heavy, loud, monstrous type of vibration, and that heavy metal. I don't know what description you would use of the music, because I'm no expert on it, but I've heard it. Not to mention that it is blasting out, you know, to where you could hear it 10 miles away. I don't really know how people can tolerate it. I went in there once to use the facility and I nearly went, you know, this was before I saw The Matrix. This was back when I thought the world was what it was and had no problem with only the noise just annoyed my eardrums, and I thought, oh, I can't stand this. I've got to get out of here. But other people are in there listening to that for hours. I don't know how they did it. Even then, I thought, oh dear, even if I wanted to go in there and have a drink, I don't think I couldn't stand the noise. I couldn't stand it. But this is the point I'm trying to make, long-windedly again, is they replaced something that supposedly was bad and made the hotel, but this is the tweak of the world we live in. It's a joke. Did they replace the evil poker machines where people put their money in with something better? They appear to be the good guys, don't they? If you look at it that way. But really, if I now just look at the hotel, and nothing personal against the hotel, I would go in there even, because I would not buy into it. But I'm saying, you know, and most people might not buy into it, but I am saying it's there though, just the same. And it's in your face. It's hidden but in plain sight, as they say. But it's not hidden it's not hidden really at all. It is in plain sight. But if you go in there and think this is just fun, this doesn't mean anything, the music doesn't matter, the vibration and all this sort of stuff, then and yeah, this is better than the poker machines where this is just an example that I picked out of how this world works now, and how it will always be the matrix. And yes, it will always be Satan's playground world, because it is his. Even if someone says, I don't like something in this world, Satan might fix it up for you, but it will only be replaced with something else because it's his domain. If you follow, that's just an example of it. You know, make of that what you will. I just thought it was interesting, you know. Yeah, so that's essentially how it is with everything. In other words, what I am saying is that everything that appears to be good really cannot be good. It has to be the reverse world. It has to be bad. It has to be that way because this is the world we live in. It's a duality reverse world. This is how um, this is how it works. This is how it's constructed. It's a trick. It's an illusion. And until you actually, yeah, put those sunglasses on, shall we say, and see it. But if you don't have those sunglasses, how can you do it? And that's, you know, it's once you see a bit of it, it's then much easier to see this because I don't even look for it. I actually don't look for it, but it just springs out at me now because my mind accepts that it's a false world. Once you accept that and you know the basics of it, you automatically see it. Whereas if you're in denial and think that everything's random and it's a real world, you won't see it. You will just see, like I say with that example, you will see something as good, even though it's still the same. It's just replaced with something else that may actually be worse because, actually, in a funny kind of way, you might lose your money in the poker machine, but you may not be being hit. You know, that it will be a bad vibration when you realise you've lost your money and put it all down the poker machine, but it may not be quite as bad as being bombarded with the negative frequency music and the negative images that are around you. So it's open for debate, is what I'm saying, and that will be dependent on your mindset. Um, I guess what I am saying is that if you go in there and you are not going to be, you're not going to see it that way. You're not going to be open to it. You are going to be like, yeah, in this world, but not of this world, that type of thing. If that's possible, I think it is possible. I think I was pretty much like that a little bit before, even. But I was still annoyed by the noise when I went there years ago in there for a second, you know. But you know, I probably would have noticed some of the images, but I would have probably thought that's just the satanic theme of the hotel to make them different. That is their, you know, whereas now I see it as glaringly negative. See, but what I am saying is that even if you are someone that goes in there and doesn't see it as glaringly negative, and doesn't take it in, even at a subconscious level, you're probably still taking in some of that. And you're certainly still getting the negative vibrations from the music. That can't be helped. So, you know, it may affect some people more than others, but it will still have an effect on most, I would think, regardless, unless you have really risen that vibration, as I say, to where you are in your own space to such an extent that you are impervious to this external world. And that is not a space where most of us are at all and are able to get to, as I've said before. If I've got a bit more time, even though I am actually getting a bit exhausted, and I was going to be personal and make a comment about. So you've got to piece all these things together. I'm not telling you them directly. I'm just giving glimpses of what I see, and personal too. Like, I think I was talking about makeup the other day, right? I think maybe in a video, but I didn't finish it. I always seem to get sidetracked. I'm sorry. Now, if only I could get my thoughts together because there's so many noises coming outside. This is what I'm saying. This is negative frequency. It stops your concentration. Can you hear it? It stops your concentration. It stops your flow of thoughts, and you are not in your own space. You are not at high vibration, you are in the matrix. The matrix is taking your mind off your own thinking and emphasizing the matrix. If there's a noise coming outside, that is taking you back into the reality. That is taking you away from yourself and into the fake reality. It's like saying, here I am, matrix, I am the real world. You get out, you don't go back into your own thinking. You don't go into your own high vibration. You keep in our low frequency, negative, real world matrix that's there. Listen to our noisy traffic. Listen to our noisy planes going overhead. Be aware of every single noise that is around you, and if your vibration is rising a little bit at the lower levels, you will be even more aware of this. It's only when you can get to a higher level that you're impervious to everything. So it is it's a hard situation, but yeah, about makeup, right now. Once again, the plane is going over. How can you even do a video, even on the negative frequency technology, shall we say? This, look, I'm just being funny, I know, but it's actually not funny. I don't, but I think if you can laugh at it, if you can laugh at it, that's a good thing. Like I say, I would probably be better off doing a funny cat video. That is the truth. If I could do that, and if it would raise the frequency of this world a bit and bring it more back into balance, I would be doing better than the information. See, there's two ways. there's two ways. there's two ways of probably getting things back in balance. There's really only two ways. There's directly raising your vibration, which is the hard way. For most people, that will be impossible. It's the way that everyone should be doing it. And that is why some people are able to get away from the matrix, shall we say, literally, while they're here and also when they're not here, because they, for some reason, are able to raise their vibration and without information, without knowing they're even in a matrix. Okay? So there's the two ways, and the other way, and this won't necessarily guarantee that you raise your vibration, but in other words, if you know of the matrix, it's no good me knowing it and a few other people knowing it. It has to be where a large amount of people become aware that it's a matrix and what's going on, that type of thing, because then, even though their vibration is not high, their knowledge of that, because humans still, despite the fact that we're in a matrix, this is still our realm in a funny kind of way. We don't control it and we don't operate it, no. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't have some say in it if we were aware that we were in the matrix and we were aware of all the tricks and illusions of this maze, this fantasy fake world that we're in. If we actually knew what was round the corner and knew how it really worked, we would, even in this fake world, some people would have the potential to actually change it. But it would have to be a certain amount of people, obviously. And even that could be a fantasy to think that way now. I don't know, because that would depend on who, not only the number of people that see the matrix, but also who in the matrix sees it, because obviously, like if I see it, I can't do anything about it. That's why I say I think the most capable people that have had the potential to see the matrix or to change it have pretty much become servants of the matrix and work for the matrix, or they've been pushed down to where they cannot elevate themselves to any position of any influence or whatever in the matrix, shall we say. And that's a deliberate ploy by the matrix. So I'm saying that the best people are often taken over by the mind parasites that I call them, because it is a mind parasite type thing. In other words, it's a mind control thing that is set up, that feeds off you, that parasites and gets into your head to change your way of thinking to where you are incapable of seeing the matrix and therefore altering it to your own benefit, to where you have a more to where you have more say in it, shall we say, or that type of thing. It's a bit hard to explain, but to where you actually are at least operating, making part of your reality, almost like you know what I'm saying. I don't want to be blunt about it, but you know what I'm saying. It's like you know you know what I mean, don't you? You know, it's I'm not very good at this. I'm not not that type of person to be doing this sort of stuff, or to be you know, talking about this sort of thing. It's really quite foreign to me, to tell you the truth. I don't want to be doing it. I don't like. I should have been back in the original garden. That's right. Just, you know, doing things naturally. I'm not. That's why I say the best people, the go-getters, the ones who, if they were aware, would make more change. Would, you know, change the reality a bit better, because they would say, hey, this is not serving them. Whereas those people have been pretty much, the matrix has taken them over and closed their eyes deliberately, because they are more powerful. You know, it's okay for me to have to see the matrix, because I'm not running for president of the United States. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna be any influence or any ability, and I'm not a go-getter. You know, like even making this video is a stress for me. Um, you know, so, you know, the only way that I could have changed the matrix, if you're talking about changing the frequency, would have been, and this is why the matrix was exposed to me, was that just accidentally my frequency might have rose. If I, as I did, start to see humans and my situation my whole life, that, oh, now I can see that if I avoid certain human beings, I will not create such a negative reality. Whereas most of my life I was with negative human beings, and they created negativity in me, etc., etc. And, you know, but when I realised that they were all of the same personality type, which I was not aware of, I thought then, oh yes, now that I see there is a bit of a natural world that maybe I could partake in, you know, that I'd seen a few things that I'd missed and that I'd got it all wrong my entire life. I thought, maybe now at this late stage there is some potential to be a bit content, and to even be content with nothing, to not actually envy others, or to think, oh, well, look, I failed my life, I haven't accomplished anything, I haven't done even the things that I would have liked to have done in my dreams, shall we say. You know, because we all have dreams. In our fantasy, we think, oh, yes, wouldn't it be nice to be rich and famous and all this sort of stuff? Okay. But, you know, but I was like, no, I'm just going to accept a mundane reality, but I'm going to make a good of it. I'm going to enjoy the simple things in life now. And you see, then my frequency would have rose. This is how I became aware of the matrix, and then the matrix come down on me, and therefore then I woke, and I wondered, of course, what was happening for a long time. I thought it must have been going crazy, as people do, and you know, because if you start to see that, oh, well, I'm not going to go on about that, but if you start to see just at your own personal level that the world is a lot more controlled and a lot more artificial than what you thought, of course, that it changes your perception, and the more you look into it, the more you then you for some reason you do start to see what was there in front of you. In other words, like I said with that hotel thing, where I had walked past that hotel for years and years and years and not noticed those sort of things, not noticed the decor of the place, shall we say. And even if I had, I thought, well, that's just because it's a punk, heavy metal type band type hotel, you know. And I thought, well, that's what it caters for. It doesn't have acts in there that are of a more melodic type music or that, or it doesn't tend to be that style, shall we say. And that's all I would have put it down to. You know, a bit like, oh, they've decided to go for the horror movie theme. That gets people in. It's a bit more interesting. No, I did not notice the animal on the wall at all, even though it was there for all that time. And just recently, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, isn't that awful? It's an offence to me somehow. And other people say, gee, you're a bit nutty to be offended by that. And yeah, that's true. But what I'm saying is that all of a sudden I'm seeing the whole theme and I'm seeing it as a negative, yes. Because it is like, it's a small thing, but it's part of the whole. But when you become aware of these sorts of things, you just notice them. Things that you didn't notice before become glaringly obvious. And it's not pleasant, but it is the reality. Because, you know, you could say, well, I'm being ridiculous, and that may be true, but if I showed that same thing to someone else, they'd say, well, no, what you see is definitely real. It's there. It's a reality. It's not like, it's not that I'm making it up about the things that are in the hotel, should we say. But they say your perception of it, you're overreacting to it. That's what people would say. You're overreacting. It's just fun. It's entertainment. Okay, so you don't like that style of music. That doesn't mean that it's a deliberate negative energy vibration ploy to keep you at low frequency. No, it's just that you don't like that style of music. To you, it's a noise and din. Well, it was always that. But no, I'm saying it's much more than that. All these things are much more than what they appear to be. And they are everywhere. And okay, so I'm feeling them, but some people might say, well, you're just sick. You've just let yourself go. You're imagining it. You're getting depressed about the world and you're over sensitive to the negative or what you perceive to be the negative aspects of it. See, this is the logical other explanation that people will have for things. And I get that because in the past I would have done that to some extent myself if people had pointed things out to me. And I said, oh, well, yeah, I don't like that, but it doesn't matter. You know, if everyone else thinks it's okay, it's not going to do any harm. They know it's all fake. Well, you know, that's like saying, oh, well, I see a bad movie. It's not a real movie, it's a movie. It's fake. So even though it's offensive or it's bad or this or that, it doesn't matter because it's not really happening. You know, I'm saying that yes, it is all happening. It is all real. Everything, if you see something bad in a movie and you say that's not real, it is real. It may not be real under your nose, but it's real somewhere. Okay? This is what I'm saying. It's all one and the same. It's all part of our reality. It is all real. It's just that we are we separate it because that's what we think. We don't think that it's all part of the matrix. You know, if we're not really real in the sense that it's all kind of holographic anyway, or it's all a virtual reality world that we actually live in. It's all an artificial construct. Then what we see on the TV is no different to that. It's just that we've separated that because that's what we are conditioned to believe. We're conditioned to believe that we are not actually mingling with all this technology or this artificial construct, but in reality we are merged in it. My view is that we should have been merged and were originally merged only with this natural world that no longer exists, or that only bits of it exist in the sense that yes, we do still have trees on this artificial thing, and we may still have the potential to go back. That's what I would like to do if I was to stay here, which obviously I probably won't anyway, but to work a way back, to work a way backwards, to go backwards. Yes, if you want to say, yes, say, well, she's going to take us back into the dark ages. Yes, well, I am. But at the end of the dark, there will be light. You know, that would be hard, but it need not even be hard, really. The only reason it's hard, even if you sort of said to me right now, this is how I see it, even if I sort of say, well, look, we have to let go of a certain amount of the technology because it's the wrong frequency. That doesn't mean that you can't substitute that technology even before we raise our vibration to where we could get back our own abilities, to where we wouldn't need any technology. This is my view. But even in that process, yes, you can't just go from black to white because we are not, most people are not able to instantly raise their vibration, okay? But I'm not saying that if we got rid of the technology that couldn't probably happen even, because I think the technology, because it is artificial and because it is the wrong frequency, it does, like in the movie They Live, keep the frequency down. So it's kind of funny that, but I can't say that for sure because I haven't experienced it and I don't know how that would work. But I do think that there, you know, that if we had a real world where even the scientists were working for themselves and for human beings instead of working for the matrix, because most of them don't know they're working for the matrix because they're making more advanced technology. They're going more the other way, you see. They fiddle around with the genetics, and everything that is artificial is the way that their science goes, even the scientists. So they're not saying, look, and they can't help that because they think that is what they should be doing. They're not going to say, throw away the technology. But what I'm saying is that if they were working for themselves and for you and me maybe, or the few of us that want to be human, that, you know, that want to be human or stay human or whatever you like, be more human. I want to be more human. I want to become the best that I could have been as a human because I believe I have been taken from that. This is what I believe. But, you know, if you don't believe that, that's okay. And you probably don't. But the scientists could, if they were working for themselves, if they believed they were special as a human being, instead of believing their science is more special than them, and that, you know, and I suppose because they control the science, that makes them feel important, so they don't realise that they're working against themselves in a funny kind of way. This is what I think anyway. I mean, they probably still be better than you and me because even science at its high levels can, you know, play with genetics and technology to where they can make their bodies better and all this sort of thing. But they still they will have to stay in the matrix. Um, and of course, they think the matrix is real, and they think it's worthwhile. Even if some of them know it's not real, they might still think it's worthwhile because they're at the top of it. So, but what I'm saying is that these same people, if they were working for themselves in a different way and working for you and me or other human beings that they're not connected to, you know, maybe instead of just working for their own ones that they like, shall we say. It's a bit like I'm only going to give my wealth to my family, that type of thing. I'm not going to give it to everybody because they don't think they're all connected, you know. You know, as I've said before, we're spiritual beings. Our thought creates reality and we're all connected and everything's frequency and vibration. So it is kind of like that while we're here. But see, I'm saying this and even I don't feel it all the time. So why would they, you know? But I'm saying that even at that level, if some scientists just decided that, hey, maybe the technology is too foreign, maybe it will even eventually take over mankind, could you substitute it? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that it could probably be substituted with something that was of a different frequency and natural. In other words, then the human being could make the transition to go backwards, because it's not really going backwards, it's going forwards. In other words, you wouldn't lose anything you've got now. You'd just be substituting artificial technology of a negative frequency for natural technology of a higher frequency, or of a more compatible frequency with the human psyche body type of thing. So then that will enable the human being to raise their vibration and therefore become superior and access all their abilities, all the junk DNA, the DNA that we think has no relevance, our whole mind that we think we don't need, that is not used. It's like, in other words, for the whole human being to become active as a whole. And I don't understand it myself, but I've heard these things, that we have all these things, but they are not in use. And I'm saying that they're just not in use. But if they were activated, and I think that they can be activated by raising the frequency. Um, and this is what I've been led to believe. So then at some point we would, and at some point we wouldn't even need most of the technology, because, as I've said before, at a high frequency we can communicate telepathically and all this sort of stuff anyway, so we wouldn't need the mobile phone to communicate anyway. But either way, as I said before, I'm sure that there are natural means in which we could substitute in order to make that transition forwards. You'd say backwards, because we think, if you're saying throw away the technology that we think we've advanced to, we think this is great technology and it's an advancement. It's not, it's just what's been given to us. It's not advanced at all. It's not advanced in the real sense, because the matrix is much more advanced anyway. It's only advanced to the fact that we didn't have these things a few years ago, and we've been under the delusion that that's some sort of advancement. And that's only because we think that that's the only way we can communicate anyway. But either way, I don't, as I've said before, if it's a negative frequency and if it's taking over your mind, which even the old telephone did not take over your mind as much. You're using that for communication, but now we're just on the mobile all the time, and we're not even using it. I mean, I only have to look round. We're not even using it just for communication. We're using it to go into we're already in a virtual reality control world, and we're using the mobile to go further into a virtual reality control world, because we're already in a fake world, but now we're going into a smaller fake world that's in front of us on a small screen. So we're getting further away from reality. We're going further into the matrix, into a more, instead of looking around where at least we might see some nature and see some reality and even see the matrix, instead we're going into this smaller screen, which is dragging us even more into the matrix. And heaven only knows what is really lurking behind it, if you look at it that way, because that movie They Live, if I go back to that, that did indicate, well, it didn't indicate, the whole movie was saying that the frequencies were being transmitted through the TVs. And when he pulled down the tower, got rid of that central source of where the TVs operate, all of a sudden everyone woke up and could see the real reality around them. Glaringly in your face in that movie, really telling you, and combine that with the Matrix, as I say, and you've got what this world is. That's just 2 movies, and there are a million movies, I would think, that would be showing you even more aspects of what goes on in the real world that we don't see around us. Because even I would, even before I thought like this, right, I would have been the first to acknowledge that, hey, my own existence is incredibly limited and that I live in a little box. I'd just say, well, I'm happy in my little box because I can't live the high life. I can't be rich and famous, and I can't be a great scientist, and I can't, be an astronomer, all this sort of stuff that is, that I would have thought was other, being more advanced and that sort of stuff, or another world even. That would be another world for me. So I would have been the first to acknowledge that I lived in a limited world anyway. But that is kind of like the very least of it, because but essentially, if you don't even know what you are as a human being, and we're deprived and limited even at a human level, of course we don't know, the vast, most of us don't know the vast realities of the world that could be around us, and even behind the scenes, like I say, a bit like the Wizard of Oz, but just like behind the scenes, that we don't know how most things operate. We wouldn't even know how, I wouldn't know how things operate when I turn the TV on. I wouldn't know how the TV studios work. I wouldn't know the people that are giving me the information. I wouldn't know if they were, if they were good people, bad people, what their agendas were, who they are. I only know what presentation they present to me. And I'm a fool and I've been deceived. So, if something comes to me, that's right. As I said, the makeup thing, if it comes to me with pretty makeup and the blonde, and, the blonde hair going or something, and is pleasing to my senses, and gives me a great big smile, I'm going to go for it, and that's, and then if they talk the right talk, appear to be more human than me, more compassionate than me, and I'm not to know. It's like when I watch a movie, the only difference is when I'm watching a movie, I know they're acting. I know it's a movie. But once I start to watch the movie, after 5 minutes, I don't think it's a movie. After 5 minutes, I believe those actors. After 5 minutes, I'm feeling what that actor's feeling. It's got me in, That's an interesting thing too, that actors and actresses, like I've always been used to saying actresses, and now it's just all actors, That's it. That's another interesting thing, don't you think? Like at this stage, they still have a different category at the Academy Awards for Best Actor and Best Actress. So clearly, they think there's something different there. But at the same time, if you look in the world, they're like saying there is no difference. So there again, but that will probably change too. So it's an interesting thing, because I'm like, why do we have to go out of our way for all these things? This is what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter, and yet it seems to matter because we seem to make such an issue of it. But, this is all just matrix rubbish. It's all like, it just doesn't make any difference. Like, we're spiritual beings in a physical body, but we are spiritual beings in a physical body. If you hold to that view, then the body is not of any relevance. And yet, as I've said before, in this reality, the body has high relevance. Like I've thought all my life, how can I be comfortable if I don't like my body? And this becomes a big issue for people, And what am I saying about that? I'm trying to say, well, if you're a spiritual human being, the body is not of that much relevance. But if you focus on it and think that it is your reality, then, and there again, someone will probably say, well, look, I want to change my body. I want to do it a certain way, or this or that. It's not really relevant, but it just makes me more happy. I know that it's only skin deep and all this sort of stuff, but that's my point, is you can say that all you like, but the minute your actions really do show something different, because, and you might say, well, it's so easy for me to do that now, and this sort of thing, but and I'm not saying one way or the other, because I've said before, I might like the makeup and all the stuff that I see people. I'm not saying it doesn't please my eyes, but I am saying that yes, we are all playing in the matrix and we're all deceived. And if we saw what the bigger picture was, we would realize that. In other words, I now say to myself, even if I don't like something about myself, say at a physical level, right? Unless it's really hindering me, but I'm not talking about psychologically hindering me. I'm talking about maybe at a physical level to where I'm so physically brought down. You know, and even then, I've gone off the track. Even there again, you know, it's a bit like the difference between losing weight so that you can walk around a bit more, as opposed to losing weight so that you have a good figure. They're two separate things. You know, one is for health so that you can survive a bit longer in this mad matrix, you know, because you still got to be comfortable, haven't you? Even if you're in hell, you want to be as comfortable as you can be in hell. But if you're doing it just for the purpose of seducing or just to strut round in a fake world type of thing, which is what we have a condition to do, then you are living in delusion land, and your body has taken over your spirit, but more importantly, it's taken over your reality, because the reality is that you are a spiritual being, and that the trick of the matrix is to make you more obsessed with this fake reality, this body, and all this sort of stuff. That's the idea, to keep you here, to keep you obsessed with it, so you don't raise your vibration. Now, you might say to me, and this is an interesting point, okay, just come to me, oh, but if I change my body, I will be happy, I will raise my vibration. Ah, so you got me there, haven't you? And you have too. But I would have to say, and this is just on information I've received and observation. Look, if you do focus on the body and then you change the body to raise your frequency, because you are a spiritual being and you're a good person and you're not superficial and just body directed, okay, I'm going to buy that. Yes, you might raise your vibration for a period of time. Probably not as much as what you should, but you probably will. You could, but it will not probably last. I would not think so, because unless you really have, unless you really, see, that's a contradiction in itself, because the fact that you feel you need to do it to raise your vibration means you're already playing for the matrix. You're already in the matrix. But I can see where you're coming from. It is a quick fix. This is the problem. The matrix wants you to go for quick fixes. The matrix wants you to think, well, look, I'm really a spiritual human being, because even I could say that. But if I change my physical body, once again, it's a mind. I'm going to say here straight again. See, automatically think about all these things I'm saying. You're already in a mind. See, I'm wanting to say a naughty word in a way, because it really means you just mind. What's the word? I'm trying to find a good word, a pleasant word. Your mind. Oh dear, your mind. You know what I'm saying now. They've automatically got your mind is confused. It's in chaos. You don't know what you're really doing that way. See the words, oh, that's bad, isn't it? I'm sorry about this for the video. If you turn off, I don't blame you. Look, But you see, what I am trying to say is that even in that situation, I come to a point where I'm like, hey, I really can't win in this situation. And that's what happens, because the matrix has the answer for everything. The matrix gets you. It will get you. And, you know, it's almost like even if you're doing the right thing, you will probably be serving the matrix and doing the wrong thing in the long run. This is the trick of it. It is a mind game war in people's head, really, in a way. It is a battle. It really is in our heads, and it is played in our heads. It is played in our heads, and then we play it on the body, in other words. In other words, if I don't like my body, that is coming from my head. It has been played and put into my head. The body is irrelevant in a way. I shouldn't be at low frequency because I don't like something about my body. At the present time, because my body is lethargic and weighing me down and stopping me from doing things that can create a bit of high frequency, that is an issue for me at the moment. And it's a hard one. But that, at least, I think, is a bit more realistic. But who knows? It's still the matrix. You know, I should be able to get above it. But if it is something superficial and I focus on it, look, these things that I'm talking about, I'm not talking about it to criticize someone else. I'm saying I have been there and done that. I have seen this. I have felt all these things myself. So I'm not, you know, of course, there again, I'm like a reformed smoker too, because it's like saying, well, yeah, I understand what it's like to like a cigarette and want to give it up but can't. But that is still something. I'm saying, hey, I do know this. I have been guilty of it myself all my life. And I now realise what a terrible waste of life and time it is while you're here. And it does not create long-term contentment. It can't. And actually, if I've looked into it, because I don't want to just say, I don't want to sit here and say that every video in the world and every person in the world should relate to me, because I'm only one person, and that would be unreasonable, and that's true. So I am saying that I have looked into other people's opinions on these same sorts of things. So I'm not just basing it on myself. I'm not being unfair that way. But, you know, there again, I was watching some videos. Only a few days ago, where this is where it became glaringly obvious to me, where I've got like a younger person on top of the world because they've made their body acceptable to themselves, or what they thought was unacceptable before, to where they're happy and they're like proud of it, and they're like strutting around boasting to me and to everyone how happy I am, and I'm happy for them. Even though I won't go into the details of that, and as I now see a bigger picture, obviously I might see it a bit different, as I say, but I still like, okay, that person is happy now. But then I go on to another video with a person who has done the same thing, but that person is 30 years older, or maybe 20 years older, I'm not sure of the exact age, but much older. And they are seeing it totally different. In other words, they're saying, yes, I was happy when I was at that age and focused on my body to such an extent, and then changed and thought I was happy. But realised now that, hey, not just that they made a mistake, but that they were chasing an illusion, yes, and that they were not happy now, and that they wish that they could go back and think about it more and perhaps adapt and see the true reality of why they were thinking like that, and realising, even some of them, even realising that, oh, I'm not actually happy with that change anymore now. I'm saying actually it's all just the body anyway, but there are connotations to it, and there are consequences to it, even in changing things, which you'd say, well, look, you know, doesn't matter. Like, I'll use an example, right, but it's not a realistic one, but I'll use it because I don't want to be direct. I could use like plastic surgery examples, that type of thing, but I'm just going to make it basic this way, right? I'm going to say, I've always liked blonde hair. Want to have big blonde hair, okay? And still would, but but um but it wouldn't change my, but I'm aware that it would not change my mindset, not in this matrix world, okay? Maybe if I was younger, I might make some money out of it, might benefit me in some ways, I don't know, but the thing is that that's not really relevant. Okay, supposing you know, I've got black hair and I want to have blonde hair, and I can change it to be blonde, okay? And we can, of course, we know we can all do that. But what I'm saying is to change it permanently to blonde, to where I can never be black again. This is the example I'm going to use. And even though in reality, that doesn't have to be a permanent feature at all. Okay, so now I've become blonde and I have to stay blonde for the rest of my life. And at some point, 10 years later, 15, 20, whatever, I say, hey, I don't like being blonde anymore. Or I wish I could go back to being black. Or I don't really feel that I'm giving off the right vibe with this blonde hair now. It's not really me. I thought it was me, but it's not me. I'm really a black-haired person. But for a while, I thought I was a blonde-haired person. That really attracted me to do that, to be blonde. But now I can't change it back to black because it's physically impossible. I know that in reality it really isn't, so this is not a good example, but I'm saying if you change something that is not reversible, okay, to where you're stuck with it, because that's just the way, that's a better perception to make the point. And then you will become unhappy and you will realise your mistake, and you'll also realise that you were controlled by the matrix. And that you won't acknowledge, most people probably will not say, hey, I was controlled by the matrix. The person who really searches their mind and their psyche, or whatever you want to say, to really analyse why they've done it, might click to where they say, hey, why did I really want to be the blonde so much? Why did I obsess over it? And why did I think that I couldn't be happy unless I became a blonde for life? Why did I think that? What made me think that? Where did it come from? Did it come from something in childhood? Was it something in the advertisements around me? Did I like blonde actors, actors or something? Where was the root of that? Or was it just an ongoing thing that occurred to me over years? But either way, it was something that was conditioned into me, because there was really no reason why I should have really felt so strongly that way, you know, and to think that my happiness rested on it, that sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm a dreadful pain, aren't I? I'm so sorry. I mean, the way that I'm emphasising such trivial things must seem really stupid to people. I'm really, you know, I'm actually thinking that I'm sounding silly myself, but I am. See, there's a bigger picture here that I'm kind of seeing in these things, even though they should be trivial things in a way, because that's just a trivial example, and that's, I only want to use trivial examples because I don't want to be making it more extreme, because this world is such a weird artificial world, and this is what I'm saying, and it's so much more artificial than what we realise. This is it. At any rate, I think I've made a few, not so much points, but I've put a few things there, you know, for you to think about, or for at least to look at. That's all I would say. That's all I do. I just look at things, and you know, if you can go to other people and get more information and open your eyes to start to see the fake matrix. When I say fake, I mean it's just not what it appears to be. It's all It's real if you can see it, but it's, yeah, hidden in plain sight. It's there. It's a bit like me going to the hotel. There are that hotel example. It's a simple example, but there are many ways of looking at it when you actually go there. In the past, I would have looked at it one way. Now I see there are two ways of looking at it, and I say the true way of looking at it right down the barrel of a gun almost, you could say, like looking at it clearly, it is essentially only one way that you could really see it, or one true way you could see it. The truth is really there. Now, someone would say, well, that's just your truth, because I'm still going to go there and I'm going to see it as positive. And, you know, that's good. If you're raising your vibration for that, I would say good luck to you, and you're doing better than me anyway. So even if what I'm saying is the real truth of it, if you're going there and able to raise your vibration some way, then you're way ahead of me, and you're way ahead of the game, and you're way ahead of the matrix. This was the point that I was going to make about two ways of changing the matrix, or at least balancing it out, is that you can either do it through finding truthful information, but you'll have to acknowledge it as being truthful. It's no good getting the information or finding some sort of it's a bit like finding out investigating a murder or something, and finding out who the killer is. It's no good if you can't do something about it, if you don't stop that killer from killing someone else somehow, you know, that type. Oh, that's not a very good example either there again, but you know what oh dear. But if you can get that information, you can't raise your vibration because you're living in the negative matrix frequency, whatever, but you get enough information to see the matrix because the matrix does show itself. That's the thing. It shows itself. It has to, because humans have to be given free choice. I've said this before. But it's hidden in plain sight too, as that other saying goes. People say they're sound bites. That's what I've been told recently. So you can't win there again. The matrix has it all covered. The matrix has everything covered, but that will be up to your own perception. And some more people that do have a better perception, even if they're not raising their frequency or what. But my point being that you could have the simplest person that could change the matrix vastly with no knowledge, no information, just by the fact that they have the higher frequency, because somehow or other they have ignored the matrix, not fell into it, not bought into the fantasy of it, not bought into the unreality of it, kept into themselves. And this was something that I spoke about at the end of yesterday's video, was starting to, but didn't want to be too explicit. And I don't fully understand all the different medical conditions of human beings, especially children, and that I don't. And I haven't looked into it. But there was a question or something from someone, even though, as I say, I don't have a computer. I only have this, and I can't even read things if something comes up. Nothing's coming up now anyway, but theoretically speaking, if you want to look at it that way, if you want to look at it this way, I'm rambling and going off again, but theoretically speaking, and I was bringing this up at the end of the video, I think it's important, and it's certainly a view that I now hold, okay? And I'm not going to make any bones about that. I'm going to be direct about that, and I think I'm surely entitled to this opinion. You know, you don't have to. I can understand why people wouldn't agree with this idea, some people, because if you're in a position, as I've said before, where this is the sad thing, you could be the best person in the world, and you could seriously want to reproduce, right, and want to be a good mother and want to have a child, which is the best thing that you can do in this world, is to create life. That's what we are really here for. We're creators, you know. But you, for some reason, the matrix has, and I say the matrix, you notice I said that the matrix has stopped you from having a baby. They don't want you to have one. But they will say, hey, yes, but you can have one artificially. We have deprived you from having one naturally, but we will let you have one artificially. And you will say, oh, this is a blessing. This matrix is wonderful. It's giving me the technology to have a child where I couldn't have had one, but I can have one technically somehow. See, this is the matrix. Do you get? I'm just putting it there. But anyway, I'll leave that. That's just what I'm saying, okay? And I can see why I would have went for it if I was of that mind. Now I wouldn't, even if it was everything, like I said, this yearning we have, this need even with the body and the need to reproduce, which is a natural good thing. That's the funny thing, but the matrix will get you. Even if that was the case, I would now not do that in light of the information that I have, only because I would have to say, well, we're a spiritual being in a physical body. So technology is not spiritual, okay? And that's a fact. And I think most people would probably agree with that, strangely enough, even if they're not spiritual, or if they are spiritual, they'll probably say, yes, well, no, technology is not spiritual. It can be many things, but it's not spiritual. I am saying that you can only produce a spiritual baby, human, by a natural method. That's what that's what I'm saying. That's what I think. So that's the choice you have. And, you know, like, so, and that is going to be upsetting and difficult. And if you don't believe it, that's okay. But that will, for me, that will mean, look, you can have a child just as you can have. See, it's very difficult to say this without almost being offensive to someone, and I certainly don't intend that, because, you know, it's not like that at all. It's not like that. And like I say, I could easily have went for that myself, very easily. The same as with the body image type thing, all that sort of stuff. But it all comes back to a source. This is the problem. And it is part. See, everyone should be able to reproduce naturally, I think, anyway. Everyone should be able to. So if you can't, it's not your fault, it is the matrix. This is my view, okay? The matrix has deliberately stopped you from having a child naturally. Don't ask me the means. I'd have to look into it. You'd have to look into it. You probably won't find it, because the matrix hides everything. The matrix is the matrix. It is an illusion world. In the past, more people could have children naturally. That's the matrix too. It's changed. Things change. So if you believe in genetics and science and not in spirituality, then you would probably think that the technical means of reproducing may even be superior. This, I think, is not true. But, you know, but anyway, that's just what I'm putting there. But, you know, but I would say most people would dismiss that and go, if they're in that position, they will go with technology to create what they think they desperately need. And they probably do. This is the sad thing, is that they probably will make, if you really want to have a child, especially in today's world where that is not honoured very much, you probably should make a good parent, unless you're having a child for the wrong reasons. But I would say that if you can't and then you're desperately seeking it out, I would assume that you really in your heart desperately want it. But I can't speak for everyone because we live in such a funny world. I know there are a lot of people who will do things for a purely superficial thing in this world too. But I'm saying that if that really is in your heart, you would have made probably you will make probably the best job of it, if that is possible in this world, because I don't think that it's an irony. There again, everything in this world is a joke, an irony, a contradiction, a mass dilemma, a mass mind. As I've said, I can't find the word, but I could use a naughty word because that's all I can think of. In other words, it's just like they've really got you. They've really got it covered, and they've really got you to where it will defeat you. They've just got it covered. The Matrix has it covered. Can't emphasize that enough. But yeah, I've gone off the track again. Look, with that issue, yeah, that business of having the child, you can go that way. Oh, I've lost it again. I'm sorry that the Matrix has got me too. But essentially, you will be faced then with, in that situation, I'm trying to see it from all angles. This is what I'm trying to do. You'll be faced then with, well, actually, I'm getting, look, you'll be bringing your child into a matrix anyway, okay? So therefore, I would say, if you're bringing your child into a fake matrix world, that is a negative. But if you don't bring a child into this fake matrix world, then the matrix human beings will cease to exist. So then the matrix will take over the humans because there'll be less of them, even more, and eventually become extinct, if you follow what I'm saying. So this is what I'm saying. It's not a win-win situation. It's a lose-lose situation, depending on whichever angle you're coming from. And then if you have a child naturally, or even not naturally, even bringing a natural child into a fake reality is going to be extremely difficult. So what I'm trying to say is that unless you can bring a spiritual child into a fake reality, where that spiritual child is able to do what you and I are not able to do, in other words, raise the frequency and change the reality, change the matrix to a higher frequency reality, that child will be just like you and me, stuck in a matrix in a negative realm, to where it all just goes round and round, and we don't, and eventually go down if it goes. So, but all I'm saying is that if you bring the non-spiritual child, or one that is spiritually less able because of the technological intervention, because my own scientific almost belief of it, if you want to look at it that way, to me it's science as much as fantasy. It is not fantasy. To me it's science. That and the Matrix knows this, by the way, because I only figured it out, but the Matrix knows this. The beings that control the Matrix know this, and the God entity knows this, because they understand genetics, technology, and they even understand spirituality, even though they prefer technology because it controls the Matrix, and because they have swapped their spirituality for a certain amount of technology, just as some people will worship different gods. It's only open to debate, which is better. But what I am saying is that, so put it this way, if there was one true creator God, I'm only speculating here, okay? So don't wipe me out for it. if there was one true creator God, I say one true creator God that created me and you originally, right? This is speculation. But there are others that are gods too, but they did not create me and you, but they mingled with us at various times, shall we say. And then we worship them as the God because they are here and because they control the matrix. But that doesn't mean that they were the original creator, but they are now our gods. And some people will acknowledge them as such. And they are the God now. But that doesn't mean that they were always the God. You know what I'm saying? But there may not have been, but then again, at the beginning, there may not have been. You see, there are different types of gods too. So what I'm saying is that one God might expect you to serve him certain ways, whereas another God might not expect you to do that at all. This is just speculation, because all gods would even be different. And there again, it's what you will make of a god too. Like I could pick this up and make it as a god if I choose to. That's my right. But another person might say, well, that's not going to be my God. I would have something else. That's not good enough for me. I expect something more than that for a God. You see what I'm trying to say is you can make anything of a God, and that's up to yourself. So even the fact that you say something's a God, that is still, you still have to acknowledge it as a God. It's only a God if you make it a God or if you acknowledge it as a God. I acknowledge that this matrix is not ours, and that a God-like entity, because it's a controlling force, a positive negative controlling force, but it leans humans to negativity because humans are not seen on the same level as it, type of thing. Children are, I was saying, we're children in the matrix, and we have parents that see us as annoying children, a necessary evil at that time. That's how I see it, because I don't think that most of us are revered in the matrix, and we're not, and because we are not allowed to be spiritual beings, that means that is that construct, that God likes that reality and likes us to be in that reality and doesn't want us to be in a spiritual reality. And that's a choice, because if I'm happy to play with a plastic doll as opposed to playing with a live child or human, if like if I was a child, that's my choice. I can play artificially. I can live in an artificial world if I choose to. I have that choice. That's not a good example either. But it's but I see it that way. I see it very basic, this world, because I think it's important to see it basic, because otherwise it gets too convoluted. Because, like I say, everything's covered. You start to analyse all the situations and all the choices you have. And if you start to argue with people about different issues, you'll just be round in a mind confusion, because there will always be arguments that will support the opposing view, and convincingly so too, and even truthfully so in some ways, if you're looking at based on the evidence that presented to you. And that depends on how big you are going to see the picture, or how big you see the matrix, or how far down, as they say in the movie, down the rabbit hole you want to go. The further down you go, the more confusing it gets, the more convoluted it gets, the more unreal it seems. And the more you will dislike it, because you will see that all alternatives do come back to the same source and are negative. And then you at some point you might even say, what the heck, I'm you know, I almost want to be out of here almost, because you will see it that way. That those examples of having the children is an example. But I'm just going to finish up here. I was going to talk about the makeup thing, wasn't I? And the movie star and all that stuff. But I think perhaps I'm running out of time. So I'll finish up what I was saying yesterday, and I'm probably repeating myself, and I'm sorry about that. But it's just in case I didn't make it clear, because obviously I think I'm not very good at getting the things across. But there was that kind of that business of having the children naturally. And if you had a child that had a particular, I'll be a bit more blunt than what I was yesterday, a particular syndrome, shall we say, something like that, where it would appear to be a negative thing, is that child at a great disadvantage? In my opinion, if you're asking my opinion, I assume that was asking my opinion, because most people are not going to go with this, and I wouldn't have either in the past. No way would I went with what I'm now saying in the past myself. But I am saying that, or at least speculating, okay, that if a child is born and it doesn't appear to be in contact with reality as much as another child, say, they've got some sort of syndrome or something that stops them from perhaps learning as well as another child or something like this. They've gone more into themselves, because I haven't looked into this. Is that child I guess I'd have to say, just put it a bit more bluntly maybe, and say, well, look, it's quite likely, quite possible, that that child will be more spiritual than the so-called normal child that goes to school and that is able to learn all the fake matrix reality, shall we say, and therefore, you know, survive in the matrix more, as I've said before. But the other child could well be a potential saver of the world. Yes, that's what I am saying, okay? Potential, I didn't say it will happen, but it could be. It would be more likely that that child will be a potential saver of the world than the more gifted, more intellectually advanced, more normal child that appears to be in touch with this real reality. And I am being in jest here, because it's a fake reality. No, I'm saying that child will be the child that goes to the school with the more intellect, that is more normal and has more abilities, will become more out of touch and more into the fake reality, which is this world we live in, than the so-called lesser child that is unable to learn all this fake reality garbage. I'm getting annoyed, I shouldn't say this. Yes, that child could have more potential to be spiritually advanced, because, for one thing, they are separating themselves from the fake reality. So that gives them automatically more of a chance, even though they're not going to be educated, they're not going to be doing things as good as everyone else. So they will be, yes, the odd one out, and they will appear to be at a great disadvantage. But I would say no, that that in the true sense of in light of being a spiritual being, and that child may well have the potential to even access other abilities or other realms, possibly. If it depends on the child, and it will depend on the circumstances, they need not be at a disadvantage, but it will be hard for a parent or for, because we are in the fake reality. So everyone wants to be able to get by in this fake reality, and they want to fit in to the fake reality, because otherwise they're ostracized or in trouble, or it's just too difficult, which is understandable. So it is a dilemma once again. But you know, I could use examples of this, but you know, in reality, you probably should not look upon it that way. Yeah, that your child is at such a great disadvantage. It is a disadvantage if you want them to live into a fake reality and go down or go with the matrix. But if you look at it in light of what a human being is and where they really should be going, they would have more chance of advancing as a spiritual human being, and there could even, look, I haven't looked into it because I don't understand these things, but at the same time, I am saying that, you know, it depends on, too, why the child was put in that position. Now, you know, that is another issue too, because you know, if the child itself was just separating from the fake reality because they're already a bit more advanced, that would make sense that they're doing that deliberately to protect themselves from negative matrix influence, shall we say. In other words, the child is already a bit advanced, and this is just speculation on my part. I've just come to me now. And so they're protecting themselves by isolating themselves, putting themselves in an awkward position by isolating themselves from, you know, learning even. That's because they know that the learning is rubbish. And they're like, I don't want to take in that fake matrix reality. You know, so I'll just go off into my own fairyland, which is the real reality. In other words, I will try to access other realms in my mind, raise the vibration and become aware. Now, this could be a possibility, but there could be that deliberate by certain children. I'm not sure of this. It would probably vary even. But if the child has been deliberately suppressed by the matrix, say, to limit them, that could be another possibility too. In other words, by some sort of intervention, because that child might be a threat to the matrix in the future time, shall we say. By that I mean a threat to the matrix, I mean, see, the matrix only serves its own, because the matrix has to keep going, and the matrix has to keep low frequency. So you're going to, the matrix is only going to want to it's a bit like if I'm the queen, right? I don't mean the queen, I mean, like, supposing I'm like a monarch or someone important who has power, right? And I've got all my little people that serve around me, my subordinates, or my, what do you call them? I don't know, you know, those that, even just the average population that I control, you know, like we've had down through the centuries. We don't have it now, but we have our prime ministers and we have our, you know, different people that run and control things. Okay, there's always someone, isn't there? Now, I'm only going to want my closest servants, those that are around me, apart from the average person that they'll just be slaves, like, well, you know what I mean, they'll work just the menial jobs. But I want my top people around me to be subservient to my matrix. So I'm not going to promote someone out there in the crowd that will not serve me. Okay, that's just common sense. I'm not going to put an enemy in my ranks, am I? You know, I'm not going to do that. So if I see a child at a young age that has potential to be, say, a great mathematician or a great scientist or a great this or that, and I can see this because I control the matrix and I know what can happen, you know, so I can see this. So I'm going to make sure that that child does not advance through even the fake systems that are put there, because even in this fake world you can get some people that can still serve the matrix in the sense that they go through the matrix systems, but when they get to the top of it, they might decide to not serve the matrix. They might say, "Hey, this is conditioning. This is not free thinking." Yes, I'm a spiritual being, and I think that most of the matrix is a bit limiting. You know, that would depend on the person, but that if you could see that individual as a baby and their potential for that development, you're not going to encourage that development. You're going to stop that development and stop that child in its tracks. That's another alternative view of why some children might get a syndrome to where it appears to be limiting. But I am saying, yes, that whichever way you look at it, that is probably a very special child. Yes, I am saying that. That's a high likelihood, I would say, even though I can't really say for sure because I'm not in that position to do that. But you know that. But I would speculate that you know, if a child was born relatively naturally, you know, because I am going with a slight view that, well, more than a slight view, but a view anyway, that technologically created human beings, children, babies, whatever, are not going to be as spiritual. I am going to go with that because it does seem to fit the information I've got. It just seems to fit for me that way. But you know, as I say, we live in a very fake world, and it's all an artificial kind of, you know, we don't scientifically understand things. So it is a very hard thing to comprehend when you're talking about science and even the idea of a simulation type world, to then talk about spirituality. It even for me, I see the connections and I feel it and I know it, but to actually fully comprehend it on a big scale, this is not possible for me. And I think this is because we're kept at the low vibration. I think that if you can rise to where you have access to your full mind and your full, all that DNA, even in the body, and full frequency, I think these things would just become apparent to us. And I think this is the idea of keeping the low frequency, is so that we are not able to see the full truth and not piece it all together even properly, to where we just, just know it. And this is what happens. But anyway, I've gone on for too long, and you know, I was just going to talk about the idea even of the makeup and the blonde hair and all that sort of stuff at a very and I've almost lost my train of thought, because these are just examples that I'm using to show that there is a matrix, that we don't live in a real world in any sense, and that we don't really we don't have full dominion over it. And that we, even when we think we are innocent and thinking right and going along the right line, that it is all part of the matrix. It's all part of an illusion. Everything you like, everything you've been conditioned to, everything that you see, it's all put there for a purpose. That's why I use the makeup. I was going to talk about the makeup. You know, I've always liked, um, I could use examples of people, but I don't. I will only use examples of people if they're not here anymore, because if people are living, I mean, I probably have used examples of people, and I'm sorry if I have, because, you know, you could use examples of people that are familiar to us all, and I think it's probably best for me not to, because it becomes too personal, and none of this is really personal. Absolutely nothing that I'm talking about really here is personal. Because if it was personal, you'd have to, you know, like, it's no good pointing the finger at one or two people and saying, oh, this person is a little bit artificial, or this person is a little bit phony, or this person is that. No point in doing that, because it's it's all part of the matrix. Everyone is lured into the matrix, lured into a certain lifestyle, lured into, like I say, whatever your weaknesses are, whatever anything is, that's it, the matrix will get you. And so, okay, so some people got more, and they function more for the matrix, which may work against me. So therefore I might get annoyed at that. And that's reasonable. But, you know, if I start pointing the finger at particular people and saying, oh, they do this and that, they're naughty and they're no good, you know, it doesn't really accomplish anything, because, you know, they're not the only ones. And we've all been guilty of it anyway. It's just that it's easy to point to obvious people. Like if someone is in a prominent position and they've got a lot more power, it's easy to point the finger there. It's a lot harder to point it at myself and say, well, look, I would do the same thing if I was in their position, and also I have done negative things anyway, even though I have not been in a position of particularly much influence or stuff. So it is very easy to do that. But sometimes it's still easier to use examples to where people get what you're saying though too. So it's a bit, you know, it's a bit hard. It's easier to do that too. Um, but yeah, the makeup thing is like, I did have an idea about that, but I'm almost losing it now. Oh yeah, I've lost it. All right. No, you're right. But you know, it's impossible not to lose it in this world, I think, especially if you start to, yeah, go too far down the rabbit hole, as they say. And once you go down, you can't pull yourself out either, you know. But, you know, why would anyone not want to see the truth? Like, that's the whole idea, isn't it, really? Like, but at the same time, we are, if the truth becomes not what, you know, not where you find it exciting, and not to where you say, oh well, this is a learning thing, and yeah, I want to find out what the real reality is. You know, it's too uncomfortable in this new reality. Well, see, that's the contradiction and the problem, because the reality may not be as comfortable as what we would like it to be. That's the problem. So truth does sometimes come at a high cost, unfortunately. It shouldn't. None of these things should be, in my opinion. That's only my opinion. But I'm not a god. I'm not the god, and I am not able to fully understand the whole completely at this time, to where I can say, hey, all is meant to be as it is meant to be. I have a feeling that as it's a matrix and everything is set up, that it kind of is. But at the same time, I still probably say, why? Why couldn't it be simpler and easier? And of course, at some point, it probably was, as I've said. I think it is a gradual deterioration. And if, you know, if we keep playing into the lies and the matrix and the deception, and we work more for that fake reality, and work more for things that are negative, which we tend to do, even accidentally, then that's why it's got to where it's like it is now, to where we are in the position where, yeah, it is hard. And what started out, as I say, the original living library, if you believe that, that was just an easy, wonderful kind of existence for humans that has now went incredibly sour, um, and become very artificial, the opposite to the natural living library. I have to use the words natural or artificial because that's the only that's the only words I can use to describe it. Even though some people would say to me, this is what I have heard people say, even though I don't understand it, that the human body is really only a computer anyway. And it is, but I say it's a natural computer. It's not that it's not a computer. At its best, it functions better than any computer probably imaginable, because like I say, we're not accessing all of it, but it is still a natural thing, a relatively natural thing. The computers that we use and that technology is of the matrix. That's a different type of thing because we were taken out of our own element, you see. That's how I see it. We were taken out of our natural element that was meant to activate and put us to our highest level, whereas we're now in an artificial construct, technological world that is not the same as us like it was. The original world, if you buy into this, was conducive to activating us to where we were at our ultimate best, to where we knew all and to where we had full ability to control our reality then. Whereas now we have gone into an artificial technological reality that we are immersed in, but it's not authentic for us, and it's not, we don't actually have full control over it. Whereas before, we should have, and we did have, but we gave that over because we decided through negativity, I guess, and just being, I don't know, just like we do, you make a mistake or foolish or whatever, I don't know. But we got seduced to go into a different reality. That's what it comes down to. And that reality has become more technical, but in a technical way that's alien to us because it's not the same as us, whereas before we were in a natural technological kind of environment. Do you follow what I'm saying? Because I don't even know what I'm talking about really. By that I mean that I don't fully understand it. I'm trying to put it across as best as I can as it's coming to me, because I'm not an academic and also I'm not at the high frequency. See, humans, if they were all connected, all at the high frequency and all this, I wouldn't have to be explaining this, and I wouldn't have to explain it to myself, and I wouldn't have to get confused by it like I am. It would just be a natural functioning thing, which we went away from. We went into, this is what I believe, we went into something totally different. That and this is why we are not happy too, because we're not, and we can never be if we keep going this way. It's, it's just, that's why I'm, even though I think that the world already is vastly not natural, and that even to have children naturally is probably still not, even though I don't understand it, I think that there's still probably so many elements that make things wrong. But we do need, I think, to go back to what is more natural and to keep humans going that way naturally, not to use technology to create. And we're not supposed to, because we're supposed to, if humans create reality with their thinking, this is not using what we have, and this is not creating our reality. Our reality is now created for us by technology. No, I don't think I've put this very well. I get very airy-fairy, and I am. I have to admit this, so I don't blame you if you think it's rubbish. But it's hard to explain, and I could be blunt about it, but I kind of don't want to be too much that way either, because then you're almost getting into an argument, and that really doesn't accomplish anything in what I'm trying to say. A bit like when I was talking about the reproduction and stuff. I wouldn't want to be talking to someone, a woman right now, that's saying, hey, are you saying that if I have a baby by artificial means of some sort, that that baby is not going to be a spiritual being? You know, that becomes too much of a, you know, I'm saying this, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to say it to someone's face there, because, you know that you're breaking that person's heart in a kind of way. They probably wouldn't believe it anyway. In fact, they'd probably actually say, hey, look, I will produce a genetically perfect child by this. And look, for all superficial purposes, this actually is true. So it's not like I can say, well, look, if you produce a child that looks and is physically appears to be healthier, that um, is somehow not the best. There's no way that I could really, at any level, prove any different to that, even though I am saying that it is not a good idea. I don't think it's a good look. The woman who has that child might be very happy, and I hope that that child will do the best that it can in this reality. And if the parent is very much into this matrix anyway, they may not notice that it's not, and they don't notice that everything's not as it should be. They won't be able to see the world in 50 or 100 years' time, to where things change dramatically and that child is very trapped. Well, that won't even be a child then anyway. It will be another generation of human being. I'm saying that even if it works for just one generation, it won't work for the next. So for me, it would be a decision of, oh, if I change this about myself, or if I have a baby unnaturally, knowing what I know now. In the past, I would have went for all these things, okay, and I'm going to say that up until quite recently. If I seriously have the choice between serving myself even for my immediate gratification, as opposed to what will be for generations down the track, and maybe not that distant generation either, because the world is speeded up, and because the reality that we see isn't really what we think anyway, that everything is really much, much more advanced than what my limited reality is. Then I would have, you're almost making, if you're really at this awful level, it's awful in a way, because if I'm not in this position, thank goodness, but if I was, then I would be in the position of, should I be doing what is best for the future human race generation down the track, or should I be doing the best for making a better life for myself in this generation reality? That's be a difficult decision. But then again, we're all in difficult decisions, all having to make difficult decisions. These are decisions that I don't think that anyone should have to make, but this is the reality we're living in, is that we really do have to make these decisions. I'm not saying that it's right. It's not right at all. Everyone should be able to have a baby naturally. Everyone should feel safe and secure about the future. But it is not the case. If you don't, if you're a spiritual human being, and that is the real reality, if it is, then, sorry, but my throat is very, very bad, then you have to think that way, that the future, you are talking about the future of humanity, of the world, in a funny kind of way. And gee, I feel ridiculous even saying that, because I just think it makes me sound self-important somehow. And it is an important thing. And I would have thought that I would be the last person in this world to be sitting here making a video to anyone. I know I'm not making it to many people anyway, but to even one person making such a broad statement. It sounds incredulous to me, to be honest. But, but that's how life works in a way. I mean, what happens in one generation does determine, because if you look at how things have changed, and if you look in light of the fact that civilizations have fell in the past, as I say, where are they all gone now? The human race could have theoretically died out many times. And if you believe the Bible and a few things, it has been almost wiped out on occasion. And, but certainly civilizations have fell, we know that. Where have all those ancient civilizations gone? They don't exist now. So, obviously, clearly what we do now, but I guess what I'm saying, because we live in a fake reality, one that is controlled by forces that are not really ours, that we actually don't have any input into it, even though we think we do. It's mainly the fact that it's fantasy and a world of illusion that defeats us. Because we're always chasing shadows. Everything we do, because we don't know what is the truth behind everything, that is the main problem. So even the good intentioned human beings in this fake reality are largely chasing, even those that are trying to make things better or that sort of thing, they're just chasing an illusion, because they are not aware that they're not only that they're a spiritual being, but that the reality is so very false, so very designed to direct you and to manipulate your mind. It is a mind game, and to do that, it's like the example of the hotel. That's a small example, but if you can think about that going on everywhere and on a big scale, and that's only just the tiniest examples, because I believe it goes from the smallest to the biggest in this world. It's everything. So it is very hard to see through the matrix, very hard to see how it isn't what you think it is that you're seeing, how situations and how everything that you think is real is still giving you something else. It's a bit like, as I said, if you're listening to music and you think it's a good thing to listen to the music, and you don't actually say, hey, that music is actually creating a negative vibration. It's the wrong music for me, but I like it. I've been conditioned to like it. I relate to the musicians. I relate to the lyrics. But, it's a bit like that business of playing it backwards. If what you're really listening to is telling you something else, but you're unconsciously, or consciously not aware of it, should I say, but unconsciously you're taking in something else. And this is what happens in our world, a bit like the signs, in the movie They Live, where all the signs, the advertisements say one thing, but subconsciously they're saying something else to you, but you're unaware of that because you can't see that the sign is saying something unconscious. And why would you? Because you think it's just an advertisement. You're not going to read more into it than what you actually see. But if you really did stop and think about it, if every person actually stopped and analysed everything in minute detail, they probably would see it. But even if the trouble is, if you only see it in one or two examples, you say, well, that's just random, that's just one or two things that don't matter. And that would be true if it was just one or two things. But if it is the whole world, then it does matter, because it isn't random, it's everything. And this is the thing. So I rambled again, and I'm sure I've went all over the place and not made any sense. And but then again, I only hope I haven't wasted too much of your time. But time is another thing that we're very much conditioned to be pushed into a time thing. I don't understand time myself, but at the same time, I am thinking that maybe there is really not much thing as time, but we are very much pushed into time in the matrix, and that quite possibly this is the danger, and this is why it's a danger now, I think, but I could be wrong because I'm not a scientist, I don't understand things. But if even at a time level, what I'm saying, like I said about the future, it's already a possibility, and it could already be. But in this present moment, we still have a chance to alter that timeline almost. That's what we're really trying to do. All the time we should be trying to alter a timeline. That's why I say we have to go back, because we have to go back to create a better future. We have to change. The only way we can change the timeline is to go back, because the timeline of the future that we're on is negative. That's I guess what I'm saying, because it's a technological timeline that is alien for the human being. It's not, as we are not that, we're not a technological being. That is a timeline for other technological beings, not a timeline for human beings. A timeline for human beings was back at the start. Further back we go, that is more a human timeline. Only because technology, we have the wrong technology, and the technology is, alien to our development. That's essentially what I've been saying. You see, so we have to go back in time in order to go forward to a proper timeline where we advance as we originally meant to be. We've gone on and we've gone into the artificial. That's why we're stuck in this artificial matrix now, because we have allowed ourselves to go on a wrong timeline. If you look at it that way, I'm sure the beings that are out there understand this. I don't understand it, but it's just come to me, and even at a practical level, it's like saying, hey, what we have now is not good for us. What we had in the past was a bit better, so we need to go back into the past. Even though really, I think, we have to really start again in a funny kind of way. But we could do that without losing, if we had the right people on side. As I've said, if we had scientists and people that were prepared to give us natural technology to where we could be eased back, as opposed to being pushed forward into an alien technology, we would be fine. But we haven't got that, because most of the people that are working for our future, unfortunately, believe in the artificial technology. This is a bit of the problem, you see. They don't want to create things by natural means, or safer means to our physical and mental type of thing, even though they should for their own benefit. But of course we are in the matrix, and some of us are, there are levels in the matrix of even the human being. Not all human beings are equal in the matrix. Some are like myself, right down the bottom, and some will be up the top. So if you're up the top, you're not going to be as in danger, shall we say, as down the bottom, because if you're down the bottom, you can't, you will have less knowledge, and you won't be able to protect yourself from the negative matrix. Whereas if you're at the top, you may well be able to even be in with the negative frequencies, but it may not deteriorate your body and things as much, because you will have technology to repair the body even though none of that should be necessary, but it is. But I'm saying that if you're not, I'm saying that, yeah, we have different levels, so, you know what I'm saying? The only way that the human can protect themselves from the negative matrix, if things get negative down the bottom, is by the raising of the frequency. And as the matrix controls the human in the lower realms, that becomes hard. So this is the dilemma, you see. But anyway, I've rambled on too long, and thank you for your time if anyone has stayed the distance, which I seriously doubt, and I wouldn't blame you, quite frankly. So, good day.